Hello, and welcome to the Industry 4.0 Club, also referred to as the I4.0 Club. Our main purpose is to engage the power of diverse worldwide talent to accelerate the global evolution to Industry 4.0. We accomplish this by hosting respectful, thoughtful, and interdisciplinary open conversations. Our aim is to create quality content on wide-ranging Industry 4.0 topics to expand the reach of the community. We're glad you've decided to join us for today's conversation. I'd like to wish a good local time to everyone. This is Women in Manufacturing, a conversation on topics around I-40 with a focus on tech and manufacturing. In this space, we discuss the perspectives and challenges of women at work and at home. Our topic of discussion today is titled Being a Better Mentor, Being a Better Leader. I'm Carol Mitchell-Lin, an Industry 4.0 Club co-founder. For over 5 years, I've been creating content for I-40 adoption in manufacturing. When I'm not supporting my fellow co-founders, I'm a content marketing specialist at Raven, where we help manufacturers engage operators to provide meaningful human context to production on the shop floor. First, I'd like to introduce my co-host and fellow Industry 4.0 Club co-founder, Grace Donovan. Hi, Grace.
Good afternoon, good morning, whatever your local time may be. Thank you so much, Carol. As Carol mentioned, I'm Grace Donovan. I'm also a co-founder of the Industry 4.0 Club and co-host here of our Women in Manufacturing rooms on Mondays. I work for Andonics, which is a Detroit-based software company that helps make manufacturing sexy again by connecting workers on the shop floor with bespoke technology and making sure that executives have access to information happening in their operation at real time. So thank you so much. I'm excited for this conversation. Really excited to speak with Mandy about mentorship and how that impacts being a leader. I think it's going to be a wonderful discussion, and I'm so excited to be starting off the week this way.
Thanks, Grace. So yes, I would like to introduce our special guest for today, Mandy Sullivan. Mandy is the customer service supervisor for GFS Chemicals. And Mandy, we really appreciate you being with us today.
Thanks, I'm excited.
Excellent.
Yes. So welcome, Mandy. Before we dive in, and because we want, of course, to get to know you, and so the audience can know you if they don't already. I know you have some fans in the comments already, which is fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about you and maybe give us an idea of where you are today and what is the journey that brought you here?
Sure. So I've been in customer service and sales support for about 22 years. Of that 22, 17 of that has been in the chemical industry. So it was always my goal when I first started out that I wanted to land in leadership. So I worked on that for quite a while to get to my current role. So that took me about 10 years. And then I've been on my LinkedIn journey, which led me to Industry 4.0 for about 2 years. So it's been a pretty good experience.
That's awesome. I think, so one thing that strikes me right away and kind of about your journey is that you mentioned kind of being in a position of leadership and that was a journey of 10 years. Mm-hmm. I know maybe personally, I tend to get impatient around timelines like that with goals that I want to achieve. So could you maybe walk us through or provide some additional context as to how you built out these goals for yourself and how you worked on accomplishing them?
Sure. So speaking about women inspiring women, so my mom was a supervisor for 35 years. And so I grew up at her knee, kind of watching her lead a team. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do from early on. So when I first got into customer service, normally in larger companies with customer service, you kind of have an entry level, a level 2, a level 3, and then you have a lead. So my goal was to get to a lead position. So I was with my previous company for 10 years. And in that time, I went out for the lead role actually 4 different times and was not chosen. And much like you, I got impatient because I was like, like I'm mentoring people. I do user acceptance testing. I've helped bring on new clients, customers. I've won awards. Like, it's my time. So I ended up at the company that I'm at now with GFS Chemicals because one of my customers had the opening at his company and loved working with me and championed for me. And so he was like, I think this would be a great opportunity for her and a great opportunity for us. Would you give her a shot? And so when I went in for the interview, I was excited because it was a good industry alignment and a good opportunity. So it took a while to get there. It was a lot of digging and self-evaluation of like, what can I do to make myself better so that I'm the obvious candidate? And that took some work.
Yeah, I know we're probably going to get into this a lot, but maybe what were some of the mentors or like the mentorship roles that you had there?
So
like, I guess what role did that play is really what I'm trying to ask.
Well, when I worked at Ashland Chemical or Ashland Distribution, whatever name it was under at the time, a lot of times they would pair a new employee with an existing employee and kind of help them show the ropes. So I did that with a lot of people and I really, really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the things that led me to want to be a trainer in my current role, because I really like helping people. And I really like when people get that aha moment of like, if you're training them on tech or you're helping them with something and then they're like, oh, I get it. After they've struggled with it a little bit. So that part's exciting for me. So I think that part that I did with Ashland kind of led me down the path of being a better supervisor because you've had practice with helping people like understand new concepts, but also learning what they need and how they learn so that you can support them the best.
Awesome. Yeah, it makes total sense from a mentorship perspective. I think that leads us beautifully into our next question. So Carol, I'll let you take it.
Yes, when we first met you, we were really interested when you talked about the processes to improve customer service, especially in B2B manufacturing relationship. Definitely, we haven't met a lot of people who've been there and have that experience. So maybe if you could give us an idea of what it's like managing that relationship and include maybe your team approach to doing that.
Sure. So I think with a lot of companies, you'll hear a lot that companies couldn't exist without customers, and you need brand loyalty and you need customers that are advocates for you that will give you referrals and help you build your business. But I don't think that we get a ton of activity in that same regard with customer service teams, which are, of course, the ones that pair the most often with the customers. And so if you have a strong customer service team, you usually have strong customer advocacy, both you supporting them and them supporting you. So that's always been very important to me. So in my current role, through LinkedIn, actually, like I've had exposure to a lot of leaders across different industries and a lot of female leaders. And so I went through something that was called Girls Club, and that's a sales management leadership program. It's 6 months and you do some training. And as part of that, I realized that I had some good foundations for things I was doing with my team, but I really wasn't coming fully across. Like I wasn't stepping up my team as much as I wanted to. And like one of the things that we learned there was about transparency. And this one's kind of weird a little bit because I always thought that I was a transparent leader because honesty is built into everything I do. But I realized with transparency, it's not just sharing your goals and listening to people. It's also about you being open about your own goals and your own failures. And so letting my team know that I was on a journey to become less risk averse, that I was trying to learn new things and push my own boundaries. I really got a great response from my team about them then opening up about some of their own goals, including some of the ones outside of work. And that gave me a better opportunity to support them. But also talking about like being in a manufacturing environment or a B2B type of situation, something that customer service I think is often not challenged with, but should be, is how do we become better at sales support? Like literally, how do we pass the ball? Because if we get inbound calls and we're helping with orders or quotes or a customer complaint, how are we taking that information and sharing it with the sales team so that if they make a sales call, they have actionable data to work with? or they have an actionable, like, hey, the customer just made a complaint about this. I've taken care of the immediate issue, but I want you to know. And then when you have a follow-up, it's a warm conversation because you're addressing something before you try to sell. Because you never want to sell when a customer's upset. Not a good time to sell. So them having a clear idea of where the customer is in other conversations with other parts of the company makes the sales cycle better. And so I think that's a lot of my journey with my team is how do I impart some of the sales skills that I've learned to help my team be better at customer service by knowing when to pass information, how to support sales better, which ultimately supports the customer better.
So kind of in that vein, and I think with the kind of piece on, especially on, fostering collaboration kind of interdepartmentally in your organization, how are you using tech to really improve those processes and facilitate that information sharing? Like, what are some of the successes and challenges, and where do you see it going in the future?
Well, that is a great question and a thorny one. Because I feel like all companies are always trying to work in more tech or better tech or integrate tech into other tech. So like with my company currently, we have like an e-commerce website. We've got HubSpot, which is the CRM component. We've got Ring Central, which is virtual call center software. And then you've also got your ERP, which is how you do your order entry. So we've got multiple pieces of tech, and currently those are not fully integrated with each other. So a lot of how we use tech on the CSR side and that sales can access as well is we do it through the ERP. So when we're entering orders, there's like a notes section. So where a lot of people might put notes in a CRM that people can access, we tend to do it through the order entry system. So if you go into a quote or an order or a contact, you can see notes about who touched it last and where they left off. So that's kind of one of our bigger communication tools, I think. And then we also use Teams and Microsoft Office. So you can easily Teams chat somebody if you're like, hey, I just got off the phone with your customer and this is what we talked about. You might want to follow up later, so that you try to make it as smooth of a pass off as possible.
Was there ever, so understanding that, a lot of technology is playing together, I think that's like one of the bigger challenges currently for a lot of companies is how to have all these tools integrate and play nicely with each other. It's always a challenge to kind of build the puzzle for yourself. And I think once that is certainly a piece that's needed to solve, but I think the other piece is how we're getting people to actively use those tools and collaborate. So I'm curious, kind of from the cultural side of the organization, how have you guys been working to foster that collaboration? Is that a challenge that you run up against? Is that something that you're actively nurturing? Because that's just the other side of the coin, right?
Yes. So I would say yes. Yes, it is something we are doing, and yes, it is a challenge. Some things are easier to use than others. Like for us, the ERP system or the order entry system is easy in that everybody touches it every day. So on the sales side, they might go into a contact to pull information to make outbound sales calls. On the CSR side, you're more doing the order entry where you're putting notes in your orders, but both of you can access each other's information and you kind of braid that information together. Where we get challenged, I think, is that HubSpot for us is newer. And so sales is actively doing things in HubSpot more than customer service is. So sales might be really good about putting their notes in, but customer service at this point isn't trained to the same capacity. So they're not putting their notes in there. They're doing it more through the ERP. So sometimes the great news is there's information and you can find information. The challenge of that is that we're not keeping it in the same spot. So sometimes you have to waste the time to double tap something to get all of the data.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge that a lot of organizations face, and tackling that effectively to make a more effective organization, I think is huge. And Sarah commented here that it was you that taught her about the potential of customer service driving growth. So we just want to kind of shout that out. I'm sure, like, yay, thank you. I really appreciate that, sharing that, Sarah. And I think it's absolutely correct. In my own organization, and I think, this varies, but, sales often has the first touch point, but then we hand off a lot to customer success, but they're still responsible for doing a lot of sales and sales retention. So it's certainly, a job that we share and want to do together effectively. I think we're trying to move beyond the days of silos, right? I think multiple organizations are doing that. And so finding technology and tools, and then, again, that transparency piece comes back in. It's so important, not only to be sharing like what's important for each department. I think, you have the professional transparency, but then also the personal transparency. So all of this is interplaying well together.
Well, I can't say for our individual company too, like we're aware that there are gaps in technology where we're not as seamless as we want to be. And so we're looking at doing an upgrade to our order entry system that will be cloud-based. And when you move to cloud-based, a lot of those individual things like HubSpot can integrate with it. So once it's integrated, then it smooths out a lot. But I think even getting to the point where that you want to integrate is really all about that transparency and sharing. Like if the sales team is like, hey, I'm in HubSpot and it's great and we're able to make calls directly from here and we can see our emails and our phone calls together, as they generate the excitement for what they're using or what they're liking, then that makes other departments like customer service be like, oh, what's happening over there? Oh, well, maybe we should use that too. And then you kind of naturally build that bridge of who's using what and what's the most effective tool for what you're trying to accomplish.
Mandy, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm in marketing where I am at Raven, and definitely hearing from the people who talk to the customers every day is important for marketing, because we like our content to come really from the ideas from the customer rather than just pulling ideas out of what we think might be good, because having that connection to marketing, so we have an idea of what the customer stories are, is really important. What is your how do you have your marketing? I know HubSpot is a big thing of what we use. Is it similar with your organization, what you're doing to connect with them?
It is. So we are a relatively small company. We're around 135 people, so small to mid-sized. And our revenue chain, if you will, it goes customer service, sales manager, and then the marketing director. So we're all in line with each other, which helps. So currently when our team does marketing, it's the sales manager and the marketing director get together and say, okay, we have this new, whatever it is that we're doing. We have high purity acids that we'd like to promote. And so they work together to come up with a brochure, content marketing, or whatever that they're going to put out in the space. And then they do part of that through HubSpot. And then customer service can see like the click list of who opened things, so that we can then pass that to sales, so that sales can actively call on those customers that have shown legitimate interest. So then you get into that whole problem solving and trying to partner with your customer rather than just push. So that seems to work well. And then sales will then circle back to marketing and be like, oh, okay, well, you gave me this list of 100 people that were interested. I've called on them. Of the 100, this is how many people I got to engage. And of that engagement, then we can feed marketing information again that's like, oh, when I talk to them, this is specifically what made them click, or this is what got them excited about the promotion or the product. And then marketing kind of knows if they're on the right track or if they need to tweak something and be like, oh, okay, this didn't land the way I thought. Let's try something different for next time around.
That's excellent. Really understanding the intent where there's some success is really helpful.
Yes.
Thanks for sharing that. I'd like to talk about an organization that you introduced us to called Girls Who Sell. And on their website, on their homepage, actually, they say that they ask the question, why are more girls not in sales? Which definitely is the first time I've heard that question posed. Now, you've been a mentor for the first 2 cohorts there. And we're really curious about, what your experience was like.
Well, I've loved it. The first time that we did it, when we were testing everything, I went through as a student and a mentor at the same time. So I've actually gone through all the content and done it myself. So the great thing about Girls Who Sell is that it's all about early funnel of getting girls into sales. So it's like for high school and college students, or for transitioners, people that have already been in business but never considered sales before. And they just want to kind of get a feel for, would this be a good match for me? So the Academy is really taking you through, this is what sales is. These are different roles within sales, specifically within B2B or tech sales. And then these are personality, like there's a personality assessment, which was one of my favorite parts, because it's all about how do you as a person, what are your strengths? And then how do you pair those strengths with potential sales roles? So for example, if you have an extrovert that gets really excited working with people, that's called like a rock star personality. So if you have a rock star, they might want to be your cold callers. Like they get excited by new conversations. Whereas if you have an introvert, a lot of people falsely think that introverts aren't good at sales. Not true. Introverts can be some of your best listeners, and they are some of your best long-term relationship builders. So with those, that personality might be like a listener personality. And if so, they can be some of your great AEs or your customer success reps because it's long-term relationship. So that's kind of what the program does. And as far as the question of why aren't more girls in sales, I think that that's really a multi-layered answer because I think part of it's promotion. Like if you talk to people that do sales, male or female, or gender fluid, you have a lot of people that are like excited about sales and they love what they do and they could talk about their job all day long. But if you talk to people that are not in the sales space and they think of like a used car salesperson or somebody in retail or somebody that's pushy doing door to door, and they immediately have a negative reaction to a salesperson where they're just like, ugh, I don't really want to deal with these people. Whereas what sales really can be, where it's relationship building and problem solving and truly partnering with your customer to help their business get better, while you also make money. Like that's really the end goal, right? Like both sides win. So I think since so many people have a negative connotation to sales, women don't gravitate towards it. But I also think part of it is advertising, really. Like I think a lot of times people think, male and female, can think that men have a natural aptitude to sales. Like maybe they're a little bit more aggressive, they're a little more competitive, they're a little more whatever people think. But in reality, like a lot of the things that people think of as innate female characteristics, like taking care of people, being organized, relationship building, those are all things that are amazing traits for a salesperson. So it's really just trying to flip the script of what you thought sales was isn't necessarily true. And what you thought a successful salesperson is very much changing. Like when we did door-to-door sales, you might need that aggressive go-getter. Now that we do a lot of things virtually and we do content marketing for soft touch and product alignment. And then once you've done the soft touches, you're then getting to the sales part of the cycle and introduction and problem solving and discovery. As you're changing sales to that type of environment, it makes it a lot more friendly to women being there. So it's a teeter-totter.
You just said so much that was amazing. Sorry, Carol, go ahead. If you have questions, I'm still processing.
So something Grace and I have talked about in the past is maybe the job description or role description needs to be rewritten.
Agreed. I would absolutely agree with that. I also think for people who aren't familiar with sales, there's so much confusion on the terminology of what a job is. Like, is an SDR and a BDR the same thing or two different things? What's the difference between jobs that slice sales into multiple cycles, like where you have tech sales, for example, where you might have a BDR that might set up meetings. You then have an AE that might be your closer. And then you have your customer success person that's your long-term support and retention. So your sales cycle gets longer and longer, and you dice it into more pieces. But if you're in manufacturing like us and you're not in tech, the majority of salespeople that I know are full cycle. From the very first conversation to retaining you, they're in charge of all of it. So I think it would be helpful a lot of times if we we rewrote kind of what the job descriptions are to make it easier for people to see themselves in those jobs and to understand that they could be a great match, whether they're that extrovert rock star or not.
Well, I think kind of this is bringing it back to the girls who sell, work that you've been doing. Like, I had the opportunity in college to go through a program that really exposed me to what I would, liken to business consulting. And I always had an idea of business consulting was something that like the bros who studied economics in my college would do. And I was very much not like them, so that it wasn't something for me. Turns out I loved it. And having those opportunities to get exposure and like reset my mindset and even the way that I thought about this role and this job was so critical and opened up so many new avenues for me. But I don't think that would have happened if I had let that perception remain. So having a chance, and I think this is something that we're also trying to do with manufacturing, is that there's often this perception that it is kind of dirty, dangerous, and dull. We know that it's very much not that, but again, we're working with this reputation that tends to push away a certain group of people. And, we're fighting to, bring them in. And so having these opportunities to kind of like pull back the curtain and say, this is what it really is, like go in and test it out, I think is just so fantastic. So I think that is just a really nice parallel with, a lot of the conversations that we have here with women in manufacturing and kind of getting more women into professions that they would maybe traditionally not seek out. I think a lot of women, I'm speaking for myself here a little bit, end up in sales kind of by chance. We have skills that certainly suit the role, but again, like I've done a lot of work over the past couple of years, and I also want to thank you. You've been fantastic in like helping me connect with women in sales. Building a skill set and tools and just a mindset that work for me that isn't kind of that traditional pushy salesman that you would associate with kind of like a more male role, right? But it is something that works for extroverts, introverts, women, men. You just have to figure out, like what works for you. And so I think that's just really excellent. So that's my 2 cents. I'll leave it there. I don't know, Carol, if you had anything else, what, Mandy just dropped so many wonderful nuggets.
There definitely was a lot there. But no, I think you pretty much covered it, Grace. Thanks.
Perfect. Well, kind of speaking kind of on the networking side of, women in sales, you are a community leader for the National Association of Women in Sales, NAWSP. Have you met anyone or any women specifically who have inspired you, and what have they done to help you learn about being a better mentor?
Yes. So I am blessed because my network is stacked with amazing women. So specifically within NAWSP. So Cynthia Barnes is the founder, and she is amazing. If you ever have a chance to watch one of her podcasts or be in one of her webinars, by all means do, because she's great. But my co-leader of the community is Shawanda Roberts, and Shawanda is amazing. So she and I are actually both mentors for Girls Who Sell. She was one of the authors for Heels to Deals. And then she's also part of the community with NAWSP with me. And she's an amazing person, super positive. She's a VP of sales for her company. And so I am continually learning new things about her and from her all the time. The way that she approaches things is great. Something that she said to me once that like it's in her chapter of the book that just so struck a chord with me is her mom would say that fear stands for face everything and rise. And I was like, I love that so much, because when I started my journey on LinkedIn, like I was dealing with being security seeking and I wanted to be more of a risk taker. And so I was specifically challenging myself to do new things and try things that maybe I would fail at, but who cares, like do them anyway and learn from them. And so when she taught me that, I was like, that's amazing. Like, this is now my life's motto. Like, so she does things like that are cool. She also, when she's mentoring, she does a really great job of listening to whoever she's mentoring with and figuring out what is important to them and then coaching to that strength versus kind of doing a overall blanket approach where it's like, hey, as a mentor, I hit X, Y, and Z. And you hit the same thing with every person that you help. She's more specific than that. And I have tried to do that as well.
I think that's great. That's unique. And it's something that I have encountered that is a very different approach from kind of mentoring someone into like being a well-rounded like candidate or individual, like focusing in on those strengths. Like, you know, in a world full of well-rounded objects, you want to be pointy, right? If you're going to be the default person, like you want to be pointy. And so I think like I went through a program, I don't really remember what it was called, but it worked on like identifying kind of what were some of your strengths. And if there were any critical failure modes kind of like in your way of working or things that you needed to bring up in order to be successful in an organization, okay, let's focus on like shoring up some aspects of, you know, work and how you present yourself at work so that, you know, nothing is derails because of this issue per se. But then once you get that to like a decent level, where is it that you're really going to shine and focus your effort on that versus trying to be this well-rounded, polished bowling ball? Just think of like shiny round objects. And how can you really kind of focus, you know, be pointy? So this is just a great kind of another example of how that's being taken. And I just want to encourage everyone out there that if you have like a very specific skill, like focus in on that to really kind of become a pointy person.
I love that. I've never heard that expression before, but I like it.
Be pointy. It's certainly helpful.
We have a
What's
question.
amazing? Oh, go ahead, Carol. Yep.
Yeah, we have a question here from Sarah. And her question is, do you think manufacturing would benefit from modeling their sales teams after tech?
Ooh,
great question. Thanks, Sarah.
That's thorny. I say that, I think my answer is both yes and no. So my yes part is I like how tech partners sales and customer success roles. So I like how somebody is responsible for like opening and demo, and somebody is responsible for long-term relationship and retention. And then somebody is responsible for closing. Like because sometimes people that are interested in customer success or customer support aren't closers. Like that part of a negotiation or a conversation can make them very uncomfortable. And it's not their pointy part. Like it is not where they shine. They can do it, they can grow, but it's not what drives them. So I think in that case, kind of dividing and conquering between sales and customer success or customer support is helpful. Where I would not think that manufacturing would want to mimic tech sales is I really like full cycle sales. Like I really like it where as a salesperson, you're building the relationship from the ground up and then you stick with your people, because really the more your customers know you and the better you know them, not only are you a better salesperson for them with knowing kind of what they need and how your product can help them, but that's also how I think long-term you build customer champions, people that will really like go to the mat for your brand and be like, oh, GFS did a great job. They helped, they solved this, they did that, they took care of me. And I think you lose some of that if you continually bounce customers between different people in the revenue chain. So I think I'm a picker and chooser.
No, I think you summed that up beautifully. They both have their benefits and I think they have their disadvantages, right? But regardless, I think whatever model you have, it's important to have that communication kind of between all the different teams, right? So this is kind of circling back to the hardware tool, or not the hardware tools, but the tech tools that we're using to communicate that information, so that if you are a full cycle sales, you can use your knowledge and what you've gained to empower folks that are kind of bringing in new business. Because, right, we also have to think about the different ways that loads are distributed. So if you're full cycle sales, you maybe are, you know, not dealing with as much with bringing in new business. You're working on kind of cultivating those relationships. So there's different ways that has to be balanced. But then if you're someone who's focusing on bringing in new business, maybe on the tech model, you know, benefiting from that knowledge that customer success has to kind of give your new customers confidence in what you have to offer, and being able to share kind of customer testimonials and success stories is a really big part of, it's really valuable to have that knowledge of full cycle sales kind of on the more divided side. So there's a lot of different ways to think about it. And so I think you summed it up beautifully.
Thanks.
I think we have on LinkedIn definitely in the comments, we have some support for the full sales cycle. We have a comment from JC here, Mandy, as well as here from Amir, definitely supporting the idea of the customer champion as well. Excellent. I'd like to go take it full circle, our conversation, Mandy, and talk about back to the topic of mentorship and really how it has had an impact on your role as a customer service supervisor. Have your experiences mentoring the cohorts had any personal development for yourself and made you a better leader?
100% yes. 100% yes. I have been very lucky in that I have been able to be a mentee and a mentor. And I think both of those have impacted me greatly, from being a mentor, or mentee rather. Like when I was in Girls Club, I had 3 mentors, and they were all men, and they were all in different industries than me. And they would ask me questions. They would make me explain things. They would challenge me to do things. Like write an article on LinkedIn was a challenge I had from one. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to get it done. So like I did it, right? And so you're just challenging yourself in new ways. And that made me better, because I think once you get a taste of getting better and doing development, it inspires you to keep doing it. Like you have that little taste of, oh, this was something new. Oh, this was kind of fun. And then you want to keep pushing and keep learning new things and doing new things. As a mentor, I have learned a lot from my mentees, because kind of what their gifts aren't necessarily my gifts. And so they might approach a question in a totally different way than I would. Or like if we've been doing role plays, like specifically for Girls Who Sell, one of the things you have to do to graduate the program is do a role play of selling something. So like we would walk through a scenario of, okay, we're going to do this role play together, and then we're going to tape it and we're going to submit it for, graduation purposes. And so you're walking through like, okay, well, this is how I would pitch, or this is what I might anticipate as a customer objection. Whereas I would then talk to my mentee and they'd be like, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. Or, oh, well, I wouldn't even think of that. I might do this. And sometimes what they would say, I'd be like, oh, that's genius. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that. Do that. So I think it's fun when you're a mentor, because you have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that can help support people, but you're also still learning yourself. Like you're never 100% the expert. There's always things that you can be learning too. It's also been interesting because specifically with the Girls Who Sell mentees that I've had, they're significantly younger. So I had one that was a high school sophomore, and then I had 3 that were college seniors. And now I have 2 women for the current cohort that just started this past week that are actually in business and looking more to pivot into sales. And so like each person that you deal with is at a different part in their own journey. And so trying to make how you support them be relevant to where they are has been challenging in a good way.
Mm-hmm. If you had to recommend for anyone who is looking to either find a mentor or mentor others, what would you recommend? I know there's, your experience is very specific to, or more specific to sales, but speaking broadly, what advice would you have?
I would say find your community, whatever your community is, whether it's manufacturing or it's sales or it's customer success, whatever your specific branch is, find a community that speaks to that. And then when you're in the community, I have found that a lot of communities have a mentoring aspect. So you can just put it out there, like a chat, a Slack channel, whatever, and be like, hey, I'm interested in finding a mentor on X. And I would be specific, not broad. Like, I just want a mentor, because then mentors have no idea what you want and they're not necessarily going to volunteer. But if you say, hey, I specifically want to learn how to do a PowerPoint, or, hey, Carol, I want to learn how to do content marketing. I'm kind of doing this personal branding thing, and I've heard that LinkedIn can really help with kind of like getting legs on how content marketing works. Would you be able to teach me X? And then you have better buy-in because people feel confident that they can deliver what you want, versus like a big random, I need a mentor. Okay. So I think that will help. But also look at people in your own current network that either do the job that you want to do, have the skill that you want to learn, or that you naturally gravitate towards. Like, hey, every time this person posts, like, I comment every time because they're great. Or, hey, when I've had problems and I couldn't get a job and I was going through interviewing, this person offered me advice and it was really helpful. When you find those people, even if you're not in a community, just ask them. Like, hey, you've been great, and I've learned X, Y, and Z from engaging with you or following your content or whatever it was that you interacted with them, however that was, and say, would you be willing, or would you consider taking me on as a mentee? This is specifically something I'd like to learn from you.
That's excellent advice. Yeah.
That's
And be specific. It'll increase your chances of success exponentially. Great tip. Great tip.
Also be complimentary of the person. If you know them, and like, if you're doing it through a community, you can be generic and just name the skill. This is the skill I want. And then people within that community, if they have aptitude, might respond. If you're going to a person one-on-one, be specific to them. Like, I'm choosing you specifically because X, like, you've done a great job at this, and that's what I want to do. And then it's, who doesn't like a compliment? So then they want to share. They're more inclined to share with you because of that.
Now, have you taken advantage of this, Mandy, at work with the people on your team? The idea of mentorship, even like laterally and peer-to-peers as well?
I have not. I like the idea of peer-to-peer. And we use it some in our training module, but I don't know that I would actually say it's mentoring, and I will tell you why. I think there's peer-to-peer training and support versus peer-to-peer mentoring. So to me, what I've used with my team is peer-to-peer learning. So it's like, hey, you're a new trainee. I would like you to go sit with the senior person that currently does your role as well. And these are the specific things that I want them to show you how they do. And I might even have a new person sit with multiple people and just tell them, when you're learning your job, you have to do these 5 things. I don't care how you do them. I don't care when you do them in your day, but by the end of the day, you have to accomplish these 5 things. So I want you to go sit with these different people because each of them approach it differently. And then maybe you can see an approach that works best for you. That's more peer-to-peer training. Peer-to-peer mentoring, I have not really used because I feel like that needs to be more like less me asking them to do it and more them seeking that out for themselves. Because I think anytime you're trying to level up a skill or your career in general, you have to take the ownership for that. Like, you have to be excited and want it. And if you're not seeking it out, I don't know that it's as successful as it, you know, if somebody just manually pairs you up and is like, hey, go spend time with this person, whether or not you vibe with them, whether or not you're really interested in them. So I think it's just more successful if it's kind of self-led. So I haven't personally done that.
I think it's, yes, I agree with you there. If it happens organically, definitely worth talking about within the team. Because if people are open to doing this, rather than feeling like they're sitting, they work in their little cubby and that's it. So definitely, when this happens, it's something to celebrate.
Agreed.
Yeah, I've been part of kind of peer-to-peer kind of mentorship or development where it was there was that invitation of that structure of like, hey, this is a program that we're going to put in place, and like we invite you to do this. It was moderately successful. I agree that there were maybe some limitations there, but I think it did open up that permission of like, hey, this is something that we're encouraging you to do as our team. And I think that prompted it. You know, the ones that were successful, you know, kept going on their own. But it certainly kind of opened up that possibility. So I think they both have merit, but I agree with you that the kind of the self starter organically occurring is very effective.
Although I will say
Go ahead.
something with the peer-to-peer, something that we just started, like literally just started doing like in the past 3 to 4 weeks, is I was like, you know, I teach my team a lot of the things that they need to get better at their job, but I'm not necessarily looking at teaching as growth opportunities. It's more like there's a skill that I need you to have, and these are the tools to get you where you need to be, and let me support you in being successful. But recently I was thinking about how much professional growth has lit a fire in me to continually grow and do better, and then take on some of these other things like being a mentor in the community, because I was inspired by what happened to me and changes that happened personally. And so I was like, I need to up my game. Like as a leader, I'm not coming across as strongly as my team deserves me to come across. And so I was like, what can I do that doesn't take money, that gives them an opportunity to grow? And so I was like, I know I can have them lead our customer service meeting. Like we have one every week. So instead of me leading and doing the teaches, they can lead and do the teaches. And like each desk in customer service, like there's a certain stuff like inbound calls and order entry that everybody does. But in my particular team, each person also has things that they alone are responsible for. So we have like a web specialist. We have one person that does all of the like new account forms. And then we have another person that works with our production team and gets out production list of, hey, this is in stock, go grab it. So like having each person get to lead a meeting of their own where they walked their teammates through what they do that is special to their desk and teaching somebody else how to do it. So it did two things. One, it makes them feel special because that's something that they have ownership and autonomy over. Two, it gives them a chance to teach, which will help them in our job and any other future job they might take. And then it also gives them the opportunity to lead a meeting. Because sometimes like being in control of the tech, like actually signing in and getting the TV and the computer to work and the laptop and getting those little tiny things that when you do them all the time, you don't even think about doing them. But if it's your very first time, those are things that can make you nervous, or maybe they go a little wrong and you fumble a little bit. So those are all learning opportunities that help make them better. And if they ever had to present to like my boss or boss's boss, now they have more of the skill that they need and the practice they need to feel comfortable doing that versus intimidating doing that. So I feel like that's now my role, like as I move from seeing myself as a supervisor, which is what I saw myself as 2 years ago, to seeing myself as a leader, which is what I see myself as now, is really how do I take myself beyond what people have told me I have to do to really growing and stretching to where I'm doing what I want to do in a way that supports my team the best and gives them the best opportunity for personal and professional success.
Excellent.
And I think that's a beautiful way to like, you know, I think that's, you know, really showcasing a lot of long-term thinking too. And really that's, you know, the success of your whole team. Because I think about this too, when it comes to like advancing in your career and kind of building yourself towards like leadership positions or promotions or whatever goal it is that you're striving for, is that there's a lot of skills that are going to need developing. And sometimes like when you change roles, like you might need a new skill from like overnight. And it's not necessarily that it's a sleeper skill and then because you have a new role and you're suddenly qualified or good at it, right? So I think opportunities like the ones that you're creating for your team are excellent ways to prepare them for success in the future. And I think we all can really benefit, and it's really wonderful to have leaders like that. So I think on behalf of your team, I think thank you. Having leaders and mentors like you, I think it's fantastic. Everyone needs people like that in their lives.
Well, I also have to add this. I think when we talk about professional
Mhm.
development and growth, something that I think is worth saying specifically for customer service is that I think a lot of people falsely believe that that's an entry level role and that people don't want to stay there for their whole career. And it's complete BS. There are people that love customer service. That is their calling, and that's absolutely what they want to do. And so as a leader, you need to find ways to continually develop your people, even if they don't want to go up the ladder. If they never want to be leadership, you still need to find ways that they can grow horizontally, if not vertically. So that's been a challenge and a fun one.
Yeah.
It's been a good one.
No, I think 100% because, if this, even if this is like, the best, if you're in your dream job, if it is always the same, that maybe love or enchantment that you have for the job can ebb and flow. So having those opportunities for learning, like this is what people do. We like to continue to learn and grow. So keeping that interesting, if you are very content with where you are, which I think is something that we don't necessarily talk enough about, which I think you're absolutely correct. I think we, as a culture, there's this constant striving, and being happy where you are, I think, is something to celebrate as well. So thank you for mentioning that. I do appreciate that. So kind of our final wrap-up questions, we have about 10 minutes left, is that the theme for this conversation and all the conversations that we're having in women in manufacturing is trailblazers. We definitely think that you are a trailblazer, especially as bridging your work as customer service supervisor in manufacturing to mentoring women inside sales and girls who sell. How would you consider yourself to be a trailblazer, and who would you consider to be someone who helped kind of blaze those trails before you in life and travels that inspired you?
Well, I am very humbled by being called a trailblazer. That is a wonderful compliment. I don't know that typically I see myself in that light, but I will say on the journey that I've been on lately, I think that something that I've done that's kind of unique to me is completely owning what I kick ass at and completely owning the parts that I know nothing about in equal measure. Like, hey, I'm totally confident that I can do boom, 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 boom. Love all of this. Also, this over here, never done it. Don't know what it is. Going to fall on my face, and that's okay. So like I think that's been like my transparency, especially with my LinkedIn journey of like, hey, I know crap about social media, but let's just jump right in. And then you kind of have these like weird up and down things. But I think something else that I've done that's probably my strangest thing is that I'm a customer service supervisor. I have never been quota carrying. I have never had a sales role in that way. And yet, if you look at all the groups I'm in, they're all sales. And this is not by accident, it's intentional. It's because I wanted to grow my sales skills, because I feel like if I'm going to level up my team or level up my career, I need that, like being able to negotiate, being able to be confident in a room where you don't know anything, being able to convey verbally communication styles where you can pivot easily from somebody who's super detailed to somebody who only wants like brass tacks. Like those are all sales skills that will help you no matter what career you take. And so that is probably very unique to me, that I'm the only CSR in a lot of sales spaces. But it's made me better. It's made me a better leader, and it's made me a better employee. So that's probably my trailblazing journey for what it's worth. And then trailblazers that have inspired me. So we talked some about Girls Who Sell.
Mm-hmm.
So Heidi Solomon Orlick is the founder of Girls Who Sell, and she 100% is a trailblazer. She has been in sales for over 30 years. She is a sales VP. But the thing that I love about her is that she never tops out. Like, I don't even know how she does it. She just keeps getting better and better. So it's like, I feel like some people, like, they might hit the C-suite and be like, I made it. Like, I got here, I did the work, and I have the title and I have the money and I'm good. And that is not her. She's like, okay, I have the title and I have the money, and now what can I do? So then it was like seeing that we needed more women in sales and trying to figure out how she could use her experience to help pave that path for new people that are considering that as a career. So then instead of just helping people one-on-one as a mentor, she's like, oh, I'm just going to found an organization. So I'm just going to found Girls Who Sell, and we're just going to make this happen. And so she has. And then even once Girls Who Sell, which is very time consuming and expensive, and emotionally it takes a lot out of you to support something that big on top of already having a full-time job that's demanding. She was like, nope, not good enough. I need to do Heels to Deals. So we're going to do this book where instead of me writing the book, we're going to have multiple chapters, and each chapter is going to be a different woman telling her story about how she got into sales and what she would tell her 19-year-old self if she was like, hey, if I was just getting in sales today, this is what I'd share. And giving that opportunity, because some of the people that are in the book are very seasoned. They are top-notch salespeople. But some of the people in the book are pivoters where this is their first sales job. And like,
I'm adding this to my Amazon cart right now.
Like her creating that opportunity to reach out to women and invite them in and say, hey, would you like to do a chapter? This does a couple things. One, the stories are so unique, from like top tier CEOs to like, hey, this is my first job. Like that range makes other women, like there's something in it for everybody. So no matter where you are on your sales journey, there's somebody in there that you connect with. But it's also a huge opportunity. Like having author under your title is a big flipping deal, right? And so her giving that opportunity, especially for people newer in their careers, to be able to say that they're an author and add that to their resume, like how big is that, right? So like she's a trailblazer, and that not only is she like making her own path forward and doing amazing things for her own namesake, but it's how she creates opportunities for other women to find their own light and tell their own story. That for me is what about her inspires me the most.
That's
I feel
nice.
very inspired. I will absolutely need to connect with her. Look at that, get that book. Thank you so much for sharing about her, and for the ways that I think we all need to. It's so great to see other people blazing trails, and then also think about how you're doing it for yourself, right? And recognizing that and saying, yeah, this is the trail that I like struck out for myself, and it wasn't something, parts of it were maybe easy, other parts you really had to bushwhack, but you're making your own trail. And I think that's really, it's important that we reflect on that, so that you can really, I think, like, be proud of what you've accomplished. So.
Well, and I would also say back at both of you as hosts that you kind of created this show, because I think that women in manufacturing are something that is not very visible. I think manufacturing isn't shiny and new like tech. It doesn't get the gloss of, oh, it's the shiny new object. But our countries wouldn't run without manufacturing. Like you have to have, they are the life's blood of our countries, like being able to do cars and buses and chemicals. Like you have to have those things to function. So I think you guys shining a light on women in manufacturing and how we bring manufacturing into the new millennia, and how we make it relevant, and not just relevant, but exciting, where people are happy to work in these companies. Like that's a big deal. So thank you for creating this opportunity for me, but also for yourselves and for other women.
Of course. Thanks so much for joining us. And we just continually build this community, and this is what brings Carol and I a lot of joy. It's very fulfilling. It's a wonderful way to meet other folks in the industry and learn more about what other people are doing. And we hope that the audience gets as much from this as we do. So thank you everyone who tuned in today. Please follow Mandy and connect with her on LinkedIn. Anywhere else that they can connect with you, Mandy, that you'd like to highlight?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest.
Yeah, usually is.
I think we should. I think we're ready to end off here. I think the note that you've left us off is a very positive one, Mandy, especially trailblazers, helping other women become trailblazers. I really like that idea, and lifting each other up. And I'd like to thank you for being with us, and really we appreciate you sharing your knowledge and experience. firsthand is really invaluable. And we support your continued interest in helping girls and women learn about customer service and selling. And we'd like to thank everyone who joined us in the audience today and asked questions and put up some really great comments. And if you like conversations like this, look out for more of our LinkedIn live shows. And for updates and notifications, we encourage you to follow the Industry 4.0 Club on LinkedIn. And we also welcome you to join us, the odd show we have from time to time on Clubhouse app. Thanks very much, Grace and Mandy, and we wish you all a great rest of the day.
Yes. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.